Hey guys, and welcome to my shop. If you're new here, I am the convicted Christian. I am 7 years clean and sober. I did almost 10 years in prison, and now I am off parole and free, all thanks to God's love for me. If you're a returning viewer, surprise, here's one of those surprise videos that I was talking about. And the reason why is because I've been getting some really good comments. And one of them had a question that he thought, or this person thought, would make a very good video. So, thank you, Ian Butler, for commenting on my last 3 or 4 videos and coming up with the question. In your comment, I know you had said that it would be good for stumps and junk wood and stuff like that to have a bandsaw. Absolutely. It will make making blanks, round blanks, much easier. I still have to make the jig for the bandsaw behind me, and I actually found out that I can get a riser for my arm, making it to make it from a 6-inch tall cut to a 12-inch cut, which will open up even more, because I've never done a stump, as much fun as it would be to do like a root ball. But I've got a couple of things called burls. And if y'all don't know what a burl is, it's, I believe, a fungal infection in wood. And it kind of makes the wood just kind of grow in all sorts of crazy patterns. And if you see a tree and there's just this random big, looks like a ball that's just growing out of the side of it, that's probably a burl. Either from a wound of some sort, a branch that may have been broken off or cut down, or insects could have opened up the bark and allowed the fungal infection in. Well, I believe it's fungal. It may be bacterial. I'm not 100% sure, but it is an infection of the wood. And so, yes, the bandsaw will be good for making blanks, circular blanks, and for cutting things down. But here's one of the ones that eventually I'm going to process. I just don't know when, because it's that large. Now, if any of y'all know, burls aren't typically that large, unless it's a large tree. But look at this bad boy. I get a hand on it. Look at that bad boy. That is going to be a lot of fun, as long as the pattern allows it to be. Now, it could be not great patterning, Sorry, sweating. It got really hot today. And if it doesn't have really great patterning, well, then we'll figure out something to do with it. But what I want to do is I want to cut that down and use it as potential inlay for pieces. And I'm tired today. And that's one of the things that I want to do with my bandsaw. I've got that big one. I've got another one that's about the same size, but it's a little skinnier. And then I got a couple of small ones that I'll probably just cut down into smaller sizes. But that one, whew, that one's heavy. It's still really wet. And I got to hurry up and try to get the bark off of it to try to release as much of that moisture as I possibly can. But that's one of the things that I want to use the bandsaw for. And I wanted to show you guys one of the things. So the question you had, Mr. Butler, was that it would be nice to know where I source my wood from, or my blanks from. One place, I'm very lucky. I've gone to a couple of the local wood turners group, and they actually have a $1 auction, and you can win some things. People bring in wood that they either want to share or are probably never going to turn, and they put it in the pot, and you can win it. So that's one place. That's not reliable, obviously, because you may not win ever. But that's one place. Another good place is, if you go on Marketplace, there's people cutting trees down everywhere. Now, typically, that's not going to be, like your fancy woods, like your walnuts or your fruit trees. Sometimes fruit trees, depending on how undesirable the fruit tree is, sometimes they'll let the wood, go for free. But a lot of times it's something like a maple, um, a fir, or a pine of some sort, and you can turn that. But stuff like that comes with its own inherent issues, and so be aware of those. And I actually had got a decent amount of wood from that, from Marketplace, or seeing it somewhere else where it just said free wood, or you cut it, you take it, situation. And I just, back then, I had a Elantra. If you don't know what a Hyundai Elantra, if you don't know what that is a small car. And I ended up packing, close to 300 pounds of wood into that tiny little car one time, and brought it all home, and definitely gave that car a workout that day. So there's all sorts of wood in that aspect. And then another place for me, I'm lucky enough with this method, asking people just if they have wood. A couple of my coworkers, they own some land that they hunt on, and they maintain the land themselves and everything like that. And so every now and again, they'll be all like, "Hey, we saw this. Would you take this?" Or they'll send me a picture. "Hey, I just saw this down. I can cut it up. It's still good wood. Would you be willing to take it if I brought it to you?" Yeah. And sometimes what it'll be is, "Hey, if you make me one thing and you keep the leftover wood." Yeah, I could do that. Like the hickory, that's for a coworker. He brought me some of the hickory wood, and he said, "Here, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a 3-bowl set out of this hickory. Do whatever you do. I like your work, and whatever's left over, you get to keep." And so you probably can't see, but I got some pieces over there that I could make my own bowls. I could glue up some together and make even a bigger bowl even. And so there's a lot of ways to get wood. There really is. And as long as you're willing to maybe look outside of the box, look outside the local wood store, you can find the wood. It's just very determinant on how far you're willing to go for that wood. Sometimes, blood, sweat, and tears, what they say, right? Sometimes you gotta work for it. And so a lot of that wood is green. The second part of Mr. Butler's question was, how do I dry it without it cracking? Here's the thing. I actually don't mind the cracks, because one, they're natural. I'll never ever be able to force a crack and make it look natural. I don't have that mind. I'm not that good. So if it cracks, it's as natural as it's going to be. And to me, I enjoy some of the fixes that people use, and some of the fixes that I've used. Bow ties. I haven't done bow ties yet, just because I haven't figured out how to properly cut it out so that I could get a bow tie into the side of a bowl. I haven't figured it out yet, but I think that would be really cool. I know that some people use like copper wire or wiring of some kind, and they make it look like it's been tied back together or stitched back together. I predominantly use epoxy. I like it because as long as you're doing it right, it fills all the holes. And if you have a pressure pot and you work your epoxy right, you can make some really amazing things. It's custom colors and all that. So I'm a big epoxy fan, and so and some people just leave it cracked, turn it cracked, so that it's all its natural cracked glory. And that's something I haven't done that yet, just because I'm fairly new wood turner. I've had the lathe for 1.5 years now, but between other projects like my leatherworking and of course I can't get it back in the way it was. Some of my electrical working and all my other hobbies that I do, drawing and tattooing my wife and all that stuff, I actually don't turn as much as other people that have lathes do. Some people man, they turn a lot. I mean, multiple bowls a week that are just massive, from almost square stock right to finished bowl. These two things right here, before I turned the tenon off, where I showed you on this one, I had already turned the shape, and then I filled with epoxy, and so all I had to do was hog out epoxy, and I basically already had my shape down. So I'm, based upon experience, I'm fairly new-ish wood turner. And so I'm still not ready to do like the floating cut or cutting air, as they sometimes call it. But it's definitely something that's on my agenda when I feel a little more comfortable, because I have some ideas for that I think would work really, really well. And so that's what's going on with that. Now, you asked about drying and or drying. So a lot of my wood, like I said, is green. All my maple is dripping wet green. The oak that I made that urn for, yeah, I had already turned an urn from the same oak for that person, and I didn't properly dry that one. I didn't let it dry out enough, and it was a nightmare. I kept the pith in, so it was constantly shifting and cracking, and it almost got too thin to a point where I was scared if it was going to hold together. It was an absolute fiasco of a piece. And so now I am very serious about how I dry something. So, like with these. So these right here started out probably double this size. And because of that, I ended up taking them when they were, roughly, maybe not double this size, maybe 1.5 this size, but they were round. I still had the tenon on the bottom, and I don't have an oven. I don't have a kiln that I can use, but I know something that pulls moisture, and I've used it successfully because I also dry flowers. Well, how do you dry flowers? There's two methods, right? You hang them upside down. Feels like it takes forever. You're constantly poking them and touching them and seeing where the moisture content is. But that way typically can yield certain things that are better. But it does take a while, longer than you would think. What else? Silica. Silica drying beads are amazing for flowers, which got me thinking. Even though it would take longer with wood than with flowers, why couldn't silica beads do the same thing? They are literally drawing the moisture completely out of this flower. So why could they do it out of wood? So what I would do is I would cut the outside shape roughly where I wanted it. And then I would make a hollow in the middle of roughly how deep I wanted it. And then I would take the whole piece and I would jam it in some silica and rice, because silica is expensive and rice is not. And what do you do if you get your phone wet? Put in rice, because rice pulls out moisture. Now, eventually, am I going to have to I've got like 50 pounds of rice and I think 16 pounds of silica beads in the bucket that I'm sitting on. Am I going to eventually have to take those, put them in an oven, or put them out, all slung out somewhere where it's warm to draw the moisture out of that? Absolutely. But because of the amount that I use, it's going to be a while before I need to do that. Or I can just take the whole thing, the whole bucket, throw it outside on a nice hot sunny day, keep it somewhat covered enough where the heat can penetrate into the rice and the silica, and that'll draw out some of that moisture. And so what I do, I call it force drying. It's probably the most one of the fastest ways to dry wood, because you're not waiting for the water to evaporate, the moisture to evaporate within the wood, and you're not waiting for it to come out the ends. It is literally trying to draw the moisture out of everything as fast as that rice and that silica can accept. So it's probably the most drastic way to dry anything. But since I'm looking for those natural cracks, I'm looking for those imperfections so that I can take them and turn them into something beautiful or cool or new, I don't mind that. And so I don't try for crack-free wood. If I do, or if there's anything someone wants me to make that needs to be free of cracks, I'm going to buy that. Because I very much trust people that have been properly drying wood much more than I trust myself, who's been drying wood for 4 months. So that's how I dry my wood. I don't go for crack-free. And so I hope that answers your question. I hope that this satisfies, what you were looking for. And I appreciate the question. I've been talking a while now that if people have questions, that I'd make a special video regarding those questions or the very next video. And, well, today I felt like just answering your question. It was nice. I'm glad that you have been commenting, and I hope to see you around commenting more. Always remember, guys, if we're going to change the world, we got to ask some questions. We got to get to know each other so we can change ourselves. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow night with Life Story Monday.